Good afternoon. I'm going to call the February 9th, 2016 Energy Awareness Commission meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to review the minutes of our January 12th meeting.
Yeah, I
We've
guess
all
so.
got them enough in time to pre-read them, and if any questions or comments.
Yes, a comment of my own after reviewing the minutes just before coming to the meeting. Realized that the vote count lists 8-0, and we actually did not have 8 members there. It should be 7-0.
Close
so,
enough.
I apologize for that error.
I'll offer a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the meetings. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved. Agenda is approved. Before we go any further, we should welcome our new member, Shannon Hillesheim,
Thank you.
appointed by the PUC to replace Sean. So, welcome. First item is our home show. William, want to go through our home show?
Okay. Well, on the first item I'd like to discuss, we had a bit of discussion on it at our last meeting. I think at that time I had said it was one single booth, and we had in fact ordered 2 booths and had them side by side. Looking at the notes, as the Energy Awareness Commission, essentially on one side, and inflow and infiltration topics taking up quite a bit of that kind of double booth area. I think given that information and given our potential topics for this year, I would again encourage the purchase of 2 booths and then obviously have them side by side or together. And we'll see what we can do for a location at the home show, but they're generally quite flexible as far as where we're allowed to be positioned.
We were in a good spot last year. If they can get us again, the space is nice, especially in light of Minnesota Valley Action Council added participation.
So, this was January 2015.
That was the application.
That was last year's.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
correct.
that's last year's, it's not
Mhm.
this year's, okay.
Yep, so that's just, I pulled up, I guess, receipt of what we submitted for the 2015 year. And the 2016 year one has not been submitted at this
Oh,
point.
okay.
I did speak with the Chamber of Commerce. They said there's still plenty of time to get the submission in, so
Okay.
we should be all right there.
In light of that, Minnesota Valley Action Council has a representative here today, and will inform us a little bit on what they hope to present at the home show itself.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Perendi, and I'm with the Weatherization Program. I'm the coordinator. And I brought a few samples of the types of things that we typically bring to a home show. I just brought 2 of our poster boards, and we have an energy assistance one and a weatherization one. And the weatherization is from a home that we actually did and some comments from that home. The other things that we typically bring is the Energy Assistance Program application. And this is for income eligible families. And if they fill these out, they could be eligible for our weatherization program too. The other things I brought our brochures that from our agency, because we have many programs, not just the energy assistance and the weatherization. We have Head Start, we have Section 8 housing, so we'll have that for the table. And then we have a resource guide for just Brown County of all the things that are available in Brown County, not just MVAC things, but other things for families. And then I brought some samples of, we have chip clips that we hand out. We have a, this is a furnace magnet where you can write down what size of the furnace is and when you change it, so it'll be a little reminder. It's a magnet, so it goes right on your furnace, and then it has a little pen with it. And then we have a temperature magnet that can go anywhere in the house. And then there's some tips, energy saving costs for that. We have various other things that we bring, but this is pretty much what we'll bring to the home show. So anybody have any questions?
Bring plenty of samples. People
Yes.
will love to pick
They'll
that stuff
love
up.
Yes,
samples.
plus over 3 days.
Yeah.
We usually bring bags and stuff, but we're out of bags and we won't have funding it again until July.
For those there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, good.
So when you come to a home show, do you actually have a person there to help staff or somebody to answer questions?
Yes, usually we do. We'll for sure have somebody on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I don't know yet.
Okay.
The most of what we bring is pretty self-explanatory, and they have phone numbers on there for us to call. Because usually it leads to more questions, or we have to ask questions. And the person we usually bring knows one program really, really well. If it's a person that's been in our agency for a long time, then we know quite a few of the programs, and we know a little bit about each program. So it'll depend. It'll probably be me, though, and I've been there quite some time, so
Okay.
I know the programs pretty well.
And then maybe just a question on that, would if we have some Energy Awareness Commission members or Public Utilities staff members there, do you think they could acquire some of that information quickly enough to maybe be able to relay it to the general public?
Yes, certainly. And also, I should have brought the books. We have a book that it comes from the state of Minnesota that they put together on saving energy in your house too. And I'll probably bring them too, because they're a great source for people who want to do their own thing at their house. Maybe they want to do weather stripping or insulating or something like that. So I'll bring that one too. That's just a regular size 8x10 piece or 8x11 paper.
Okay.
Very good. Sounds very good. We're talking about additional themes, or
Thanks.
should we just cover?
Are they gonna be right alongside us
They will be in our booth, I believe.
in the same booth?
Yes.
Yep. And I think we'll have a bit more of a budget discussion in the upcoming item here on purchasing, 2 booths or 1. I guess my recommendation would be 2, and then exactly where to have those funds. I think at this point in the agenda item, we would discuss, finalizing, partnering with the Minnesota Valley Action Council for a portion of our home show theme. And then I believe some of the other themes would be background on what the Energy Awareness Commission is. I think we could reuse some of our information from, essentially from last year's display. And then showing the public utilities rebates, the other rebates offered as well.
That should be plenty. Anybody else want to talk about anything else for the
We
show?
hand out anything there
Yeah.
ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like,
We've had our calendars there. They go over real well.
Yeah, like
Post-its.
little LED night lights and stuff like that. Does anybody hand out anything like that, or?
We have in previous years, I guess, last year there was not a large handout, because half of it was the inflow and infiltration display. But in previous years, we've had LED giveaways, I guess some other smaller item giveaways as well.
I didn't know what you did, so. All right.
Okay, and funding preference, William?
So I think there's 2 ways to look at this, and you can reference the budget items, but I think we could assign both booths to the home show funding, which is what I think I would prefer. We generally split that up among the general CIP programs for reporting. Or else, I guess since one is a low-income program, potentially have the one come out of home show, is the general Energy Awareness Commission booth and one out of the low income program funding. And again, I think my preference would be to have both just come out of the fund previously made for the home show.
And how much are we putting?
So it would be, it's a $350 cost for.
Oh, that's
each
it, that's what you're doing, okay.
Yep. So I guess, you know, it'd be either 350 out of one and 350 out of the other, or 700 out of single one of those funds. And, you know, generally I think the home show fund is set up to be used that way. That would be my preference for this year.
Could we take it out of that school education?
I guess the school education programs that's generally used for like the 4th grade program, and we actually do have another fund that can be used for grant monies for energy education projects. And that's generally what the school education fund is used for.
Right.
William, does that cover the poster? Is that covered under the school education, the poster contest?
Yep, the
Oh,
4th
okay.
grade poster contest. And what you'll generally see under the school education programs is that in some years that will be a bit higher to allow for the purchase of prizes and other materials.
Well, maybe we should take it out of that 15,000 miscellaneous education.
Well, that would be the calendar fund.
You know what?
So,
I'm wondering if we're gonna continue to discuss this, if we're all done, then she can maybe be on her way.
Yeah, I
If
suppose
we,
we
Thank you, Chris.
yeah,
Thanks a
thank you
lot.
very much.
Yep, and then just give me a call if you have any questions.
yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
That way she can be on her way.
Yeah, I think we're well decided that
Yeah.
we'll be partnering with the
Yeah.
Minnesota Valley Action Council.
Yeah, sorry about that, I just.
Yep, thank you, Lisa.
So I think with it being a home show activity, I think coming out of the home show budget, we've always had enough in that budget to cover the costs, that would probably be the appropriate place.
If there's enough
don't you
there,
think?
let's just continue funding it the same way.
Okay. All right. Then I don't know if you'd like to cover the last item, the participation
It's a
sheet.
participation sheet that everybody got. Right now, you don't have to commit, but if you do have a preference for a time, let William know. The more of us that are there is less taxing on William. Otherwise, William runs the whole thing. And it's very enjoyable sitting there and visiting with people. And most of their questions are actually simple enough for me to answer, so.
Can always direct them somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Hand 'em-
that's
there's
right.
Hand 'em a
PUC
phone number,
employees
yeah.
right next to us, which is nice. And we'll have Minnesota Valley Action Council people there too, so
Sure.
we'll be even more educated. So you can let William know as soon as possible. Let's fill up that sheet if we can. Anything else on the home show that we should talk about? Okay, let's move on to the budget items, the CIP income and expense summary.
Okay. Well, the initial CIP income and expense summary so far through this year, really nothing too big there. I guess a bit in the furnace rebate yet, and looks like one high efficient, or I guess a few smaller high efficiency lighting rebate funds. I think that's about the only highlights we have at this point. And that does generally pick up later in the year, so I think, you know, seeing 3,000 there for the first month or so, you know, that's generally how it occurs this early in the funding season. And are there any questions on the CIP income and expense summary?
Pretty clean right now. So we have 274,000 in our budget for this year, is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
And I guess maybe
Shannon, that's our job to spend that.
maybe one additional comment there, and we'll see this a bit more as we go into the next budgeting sheet. That is significantly higher. The public utilities, in fact, hit the threshold to be required to have a natural gas conservation improvement program. And because of that, you'll see that the funding for the 2016 budget has been increased. We actually have largely the same amount of programs, or the same programs in place. Some of that spending that was, kind of used for gas will be directly assigned to gas savings programs that year, and then have been expanded for total funding.
So with that new kind of so-called requirement, are we looking at any new programs?
We don't have any new programs currently, that are currently being looked at. I think that's a question to maybe bring up. And I know one thing that's been mentioned is to look into an industrial gas program. I guess at this point, I must admit, I've been focused in on electric savings programs. I'm not as familiar with industrial programs. I think that's maybe something to move forward with potentially this year. I guess the other question would be is getting a feel for, generally we may actually, if we have a low gas sale year, drop back below the requirement. If those are programs we'd like to, maintain, or if maybe just the amount of funding for those programs will vary year to year. And I think, certainly we can discuss those, briefly in the topics of interest area of the meeting. But I think, maybe further discussion would be best postponed to another full meeting.
Any questions on income and expense summary? It's pretty fresh this year.
Yeah.
Interesting piece that William included in our packet was the kind of a budget history over the last 5 years.
Yep, that's correct. So this is the general budget that we use. So this would be one page out of our budget book, and it shows I guess this would have the balance for 2012 through 2014. And then it currently lists the 2015 budget, and that's actually due to we don't officially close our books for the 2015 budget year until the end of February. So even at this point, they're not officially closed. I would say that our overall spending, including a budget carryover, will probably put us right around that 220,000 spent for the year.
Will we get a copy of that then, like we talked before?
Yeah, I think what I'll most likely do is bring that finalized budget summary next meeting.
Yeah.
Once the books
that'd be
are
fine.
officially closed. And then we'd be able to see where our 2015 spending actually has come in at.
Okay.
But if you'll notice that I just counted, there are 9 different funds that we've significantly budgeted more money for in the 2016 budget.
Yep.
Any questions on that? Okay. Notification of 2015 budget finalization. We just talked about that briefly. You're going to get that to us next meeting?
Yep, should be next meeting. We would have that available.
Very good. We all got the current rebate sheets. Questions or anything on that? Or any suggestions for changes or?
Where's the water heater?
I guess kind of building on Lisa's comments about natural gas programs, I think, given that we've increased are budgeting for some of these natural gas programs, may make sense to look into additional programs. I think we, due to being near that limit, we already have a few of the staples here. Furnace rebate program for natural gas and a water heater program for natural gas. And I think, potentially industrial type rebates may make sense to look at. And I guess the other thing to maybe take another look at here would be within the furnace rebate, we do also have a rebate for boiler systems, and that's more at the residential level. And boilers have really come a long ways since we've last looked at these numbers. With condensing boilers, they can reach quite a bit higher numbers than that 85% minimum, and are also probably would be eligible for a much higher rebate than the $100 level. May make sense to look into raising that based on efficiency.
William, does the state have a TRM like they do for the electric on the gas side also? What you can claim for certain measures that are done?
I believe they do. I believe the TRM also covers natural
gas side.
gas. But I will have to double check. I just have not been. I've been using some of the built-in calculations within the energy savings platform. But as far as any that are within the TRM but maybe not built into the energy savings platform, I will have to double check what their values are. And that's certainly
Might give us some ideas on programs,
oh yeah,
maybe what we can do.
maybe a good resource to check into first, as well as just
Recreating the wheel.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
I would say in light of the extra generated money, that this is something that maybe we should look into. If you could prepare something for the next meeting or meeting after that for us to look at. Appreciate that. Any other discussion on our rebates?
We talked one time about raising the furnace cleaning rebate. Are we still gonna do that?
I guess that
Well-
may be a possibility. I think the next one that would be coming up, I think through the end of this season, we would likely
Stay
remain the same.
yeah.
The next one would be the air conditioner cleaning rebate. And I think I will need to evaluate that a bit more myself here before we proceed with it.
Yeah, so we
I know.
don't forget about it, because I think we talked about that before.
Well, we could ask Adam, are your fees going to stay comparable or?
Personally, we're actually comfortable with where it's at right now. Sometimes you, like I said, you go over, sometimes you go under. I, from experience, feel that it is at a good spot right now. So
Okay.
Okay,
And may have to check with a few other of the local vendors here in town. I know year to year I get varying responses to that. So
Any other discussion?
On the residential lighting program, the $100 per year, that's like in 2015 and then 2000, if they got a rebate in December 2015, can they then get, if they purchase in 2016, more bulbs?
yep,
So,
that's
okay,
correct.
so it goes by year, not like a 12-month rolling period.
Yep, it would be by
Okay.
calendar year. And actually, we have encouraged a few customers to do that, depending on what they have purchased. We have had a couple customers come in with, redoing an entire basement the end of December, and said we'll do half of them this year, and maybe file the other half for the next budget year.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions on our rebates? If not, we're gonna move on to the solar energy. And William, I'm gonna turn this over to you.
Okay. Well, I think for tonight's meeting, I'll just keep this very basic discussion. I think that's the best way to proceed. And there has been some talk, I guess. So the first thing would be kind of the definition of community solar. Community solar projects are when either a utility or a city or even can be a private organization will build a large solar field and then can in turn sell or rent out those units to individual customers. Many times they're utility partnerships in some way so that the participants can get a credit, say on their utility bill. Recently there's been some changes to state law, especially for the investor-owned utilities, requiring additional solar. And the community solar projects are becoming quite a bit more prevalent here in the state of Minnesota. And so that's kind of a general background on what the community solar projects are. And then the Long-Term Power Committee has briefly spoken about community solar projects or solar power in general, and I guess feels that it's worth looking into. Has not made a further decision on what direction to go, and I thought it might be a good topic to look at here with the Energy Awareness Commission. And I think at this point, not necessarily looking at a specific project, but maybe if there's any personal feedback or knowledge about community solar projects, even good things, bad things that you've heard from other areas. So I guess with that, I'll probably hand it over to commissioner discussion.
Well, if we can get somebody from another town that's doing it, per se Moorhead, Litchfield, anybody like that to talk to us, I'd like to do that. We've talked at the long term about possibly getting them down here to talk about it. For solar for my house would cost me $35,000 to be hooked up to the city of New Ulm for a 10K system. Now I know we can get hooked up to that a lot cheaper. To buy a few panels every year and get hooked up into a city system. That's kind of what I'm looking at. So I'm hoping the city goes ahead and does it, because then I will hook up into there and get it out of there instead of spending the money. Because I'm not going to gain anything anymore at this time if I put it in myself, because I'm not eligible for the federal rebates, because you get $9,000 a year back in taxes. I don't pay that much, so it does me no good to turn in a federal rebate. So I would be better off getting in with the city system.
And I think, from a couple of the things that you've mentioned, there are some good reasons why community solar projects have become popular. I think on the one side is with economies of scale, they can generally be cheaper to install per panel. Essentially per watt that's installed. I think some other advantages that they have would be, the siting requirements as well.
Yeah.
If you're an apartment owner, or perhaps your home isn't sited correctly for solar, just may not be an option, but it's possible to purchase a share elsewhere.
Yeah, because it'll take me 32 panels to come up with a 10K system. Now, I've got the roof space for it, but, I could buy them in another spot and get it there too, and then still get electric through my house, paying for it that way there. And then the way I looked at it then, the city would be taking care of all the maintenance, and then the customers in town would be paying the utilities for the maintenance on the system. And that's all divided out with the people that are bought into the community solar system.
And I guess, to comment on that, as far as maintenance is concerned, that can certainly vary depending on the type of contract
Right.
that's set up. Typically, the utility or the owner, whatever the owning entity of those solar panels is responsible for the general maintenance of it. So that can be another advantage to community solar.
My question is, how many other municipal utilities are doing solar?
A lot of them.
I don't have hard numbers on that. I know of several kind of off the top of my head that
There's
I've
someone
seen.
like Ricky said, Litchfield, or someone
Litchfield, Moorhead.
relatively
So
close
is
to
it-
us that would
But
be willing to
Litchfield,
come.
would they be doing it through the co-op? So that, would that be
I
a
don't know, the
co-op?
man, that Dan with the electric department, he knows the guy up there.
Dan with the
Last name starts with a P.
But is
was at the
Litchfield a
last
municipal
long-term meeting.
utility, or is it a
Oh,
co-op?
Dan Persig.
Yeah, he knows
Oh,
the man
I
at
see.
Litchfield.
And they're, well, I guess, just to maybe come in here, but so some, I guess some of these are either cooperatives, or they may be, I know Xcel Energy has, done quite a few
Yeah.
within their investor-owned communities. But there are a few municipal-owned projects as well. And we may, I guess, spoken with some of the MMUA members, and they may be willing to speak to us about it as well, even if we're not able to get one of the community members to come down here and talk about it.
I copied that stuff out of that book. You guys want copies of that?
Well, we
From
could
that?
pick it up later on, but yep,
Sure.
the MMUA resource is being
Here, you can
referenced.
take one.
I guess I would like to see some information generated and shared with the rest of
Yeah.
the commission, perhaps at our April meeting. March meeting, we have to judge posters.
Well, I'd like to see us go along with something like this, and when I talked to the guy with Zinnel Electric, he came over and gave me my bid on my house there. The guy from Glencoe, he still hasn't yet, he's gone. But he said he'd come talk to us anytime we wanted to too. So all you gotta do is get a hold of him and talk to him.
Okay. Well, we could, I think we could maybe make some calls, and it sounds like perhaps the long-term power committee has already done some of that legwork, but see who might be willing to give us their impressions and background in the matter.
Do we have, William, do you know, do we have a large push for solar from customers? Do you get that question a lot, or what is the community sense in the community, do you know?
I would say I haven't had a large push. I certainly get a couple calls, maybe a few a month, wondering about solar, if it makes sense to move forward with, what are the general costs for it. And I think it's maybe not as well known, the upfront costs that would be associated with solar. I think it's still generally a long payback time. So certainly that's a good opportunity to maybe stress some of the other lower cost, faster payback options first. But there are a few of the customers who call in are, probably already in an energy efficient house. May make sense for them to pursue it. And we did do just a small survey at one of our home shows to try to gauge that interest, and that was just home show attendees. And I would say the interest was certainly there. I guess one major flaw I had is I had a 0 to 20% range as far as what customers might be willing to pay as far as additional cost. And I think, my impression was most people were at that 0 range. But because of how that was structured, it wasn't
Don't really know,
usable.
yeah.
They're gonna be for it if somebody else pays for it.
Yeah, that's right. So, I think that price point is still kind of a large issue of contention, but I think there certainly was interest. Probably I'd say around 50% had some interest expressed. It would just come down to the overall cost.
Right.
And I think, other communities that, at least from the articles I've read and general response I've received, have been able to, fill their original estimates, and then in some areas have really exceeded it when they've moved forward with a project.
Well, it does cost a little bit more per kilowatt though. Like with the city, it's 12 cents, about 12 cents we're paying. And with the solar, it's like 18 cents by the time you get it figured in.
And that, I think that's still a reality with solar. You would be getting a clean energy source for power, but likely your overall cost is going to be somewhat higher than what the public utilities can supply power for.
Well, with the $35,000 cost, we had figured out the payback was 15 years. Is what that would cost for you to get your money. Approximately $277 a month cost.
And what's the life of the panel itself?
Right around 20 years. They only need to be cleaned a couple of times a year, heavy snows, unless it's like a 2-foot snow or something. Then you got to clean them off. Otherwise, you don't have to do anything with them. They are built for the hail and stuff up around here. There's a lot of people doing it, and the snow and the cold. It's actually better in the cold. You get better power off of them in the cold than you do in the heat. It sounds kind of weird, but that's what they're telling us.
Have we ever gotten any feedback from Firmenich on their panels that they got on the roof?
Yeah, I guess to speak from my experience with a few of the businesses and I guess a few residential owners as well, I think the outputs and maintenance seems to be, in line with what they were told. I would say, I think averaged out, it's just about where their original estimates were for production. So there's been, I think the first year that it was up, they actually exceeded production by what they thought it would come in at. And I think the second year or so was actually a bit under. So I think overall it's really just about where they had, where their estimate was placed at as far as production. And no major malfunctions that I've seen at this point.
Well,
I would like to get some information from other municipal,
Projects?
because we're in a unique situation here in New Ulm where we are a municipal utility, not
Investor-owned like Excel, where they're mandated to do some of
So
that.
we've got to take that into consideration with anything that we should pursue. If you could investigate that and bring that back to us at another meeting, William, I'd appreciate it.
now is the Park and Rec, they're actually talking about putting solar on that new project they're looking at. On that swimming thing down here at the Vogel Arena, what they want to add on. They're actually talking about putting solar up on top of the building down there.
That hasn't passed yet.
No, it has not passed yet, but they are talking about it.
And unfortunately, I'm not prepared to talk about that at this time.
No, I
at this
understand, but
meeting.
at least people are looking at it.
Yeah.
Yep, it certainly has been looked at in various areas, and I think, as even the couple of years that I've been working here, the prices have fallen considerably over those years. So, kind of each year it gets discussed, it becomes closer and closer to a reality, and in some cases, has become a reality for some of the businesses and homeowners here in town.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Anything else on the solar energy?
No.
Any other comments or concerns for commissioners? Now with Sean's transfer out, we're glad to have Shannon here. We are also in need of another member, I believe, unless Mr. Hoikert has agreed. But it was my understanding that John wanted to get off. So should notify the mayor, get a full board or commission, and when we get a full commission, we're gonna have to elect a vice chair.
No,
Yeah.
that's true.
So everybody check your schedules and be ready to step up. Anything else? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, seconded to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
We're out of here. Thanks.